Alrighty, back again. Talk about the old Impact versus the Flight. I got the new Impact fresh in. That way I can talk about some of the tech behind it. But that's not the point of this. I was really wanting to talk about the difference of these decks, Flight versus Impact. I skated this Flight board for roughly 4.5 months. Never, like, you could hear cracks sometimes, like the nose bent all the way down to the ground 2 or 3 times. My buddy thought it broke. Nope, no cracks anywhere. There are some chips, you know, like little delamination chip. We'll take a closer look at these, like, but all in all, this board, for the money, I think I got it on sale for $100. So they're usually like $115, $120ish. But it never broke, and it lasted, you know, it still had pop and everything. It's just that I had this sitting here, so I was like, well, it's time, you know what I mean? But I don't think it was time. So now I'm doing a second test. I'm currently on another Flight that I just started skating a couple days ago. I'm going to see how long that one lasts, and I'll make a second version of this video. It's not going to be for quite a long time now, but anyway, yeah, so that's, like I said, we'll take a closer look. This one I actually did have to re-grip, because I had, in the previous video I made, I mentioned that any of that custom mob grip tape, not good. And yeah, it wasn't good. It wore right out, so I had to re-grip it with some Jessup, and that lasted quite a while. And anyhow, so then we got the Impact board. I skated this one for, if it would have lasted one more day, it would have been exactly 5 months. And I didn't have to re-grip this one. It was Jessup, still nice and grippy. Not much wear and tear on the graphic, you know, there's like wax marks and stuff and some little slits. The tail barely wore out. Like I said, we're going to have to take a closer look at these, but the nose not bad at all. And it did have one chip, but that was because I was like, oh, it's supposed to be unchippable, right? And wound it into the 90-degree corner of a metal ramp, and it shaved off a little piece, but that was it. Like, never had any other issues with it. It's not sharp or anything. And this board did get wet several times. Barely lost any of the shape. But I had cracked it. Like, there was 2 little cracks on the bolts back here. And it still had all the pop in the world. I skated it, I think, 2 more sessions, but it was that second session. I went to do a kickflip off a 3-foot quarter pipe and landed wrong on the tail, snapped the tail. So this one, I skated for a little bit longer. However, it did break. And like I said, I could have kept skating this one for longer. Like, it still had pop. It wasn't dead or anything like that. It was just losing shape and pretty beat up. And I had this one handy, so I was like, well, I'm going to bust this one out. But this one did end up breaking. So, I don't know. Before I get to the conclusions here of which one I think is better, and it's hard for me to say really, but let's take a closer look at both of these real quick. Alright, let's get a close up on the actual graphics a little bit. This graphic obviously gets torn right up. That's one cool feature about the Impacts, I guess, is that whatever graphics on there tends to stay pretty well. And that's the other thing I was getting at, is the tails. Like, this one's still pretty thick. It says no razor tail on it. That was the thing I wanted to get at. Whereas the Flight was pretty razored right out. The Flight was starting to lose some of its shape. Whereas this tail stayed nice and round. I didn't even notice this until right now in the video. Little chip right there. But still, nothing compared to that. You know what I mean? And then the nose is quite similar. This one's pretty beat up. I can say I probably threw a couple temper tantrums and wound this thing around. Whereas this one can take that beating because it's got like polycarbonate edging on it. Carbon fiber bottom, whatever, you know. This one's got the carbon, I'm pretty sure, on bottom and top, and then some throughout there. The Flight they don't really tell you the technology behind their shit. But the Impact's pretty nice, and that's where this one comes into play. Just got this brand new one. And here you can see how it's, you know, it's all carbon on bottom, the polycarbonate shit. It's got carbon inlays in the middle, but it does have wood. That's actual wood. But no chips, impact ready, infinite pop. And clearly no chips is a lie, because I didn't do that one on purpose. Like the one up top. Let me show you that actually. The one up top was pretty decent. But yeah, no chips, impact ready, infinite pop, this ever slick layer on there and whatnot. Like, these boards really are awesome. But alright, now that we took somewhat of a closer look, we'll fucking pop it back on the tripod and do a conclusion here. Alright, so all in all, because that's the other thing I didn't really mention in the first part of this, was the price point, right? For this impact board, it was $120 for the deck, $40 for the shipping, and then, because of the tariffs, there was another $29 charge. It's, you know, it's hard to justify paying that much money for a skateboard. However, with the waterproof, the chip proof, like, how well this one held up, I want to say it's worth it, but then it broke, you know. I guess I didn't even really show that up close while we were looking at it. I'll have to show that again real quick. Hold on. I'm not going to edit this that much. But for a flight deck, 115, 120, sometimes a little more expensive if it's like a pro model or a cooler graphic. You might be paying upwards of 130. But I skated this one for almost the same amount of time and it did not break, you know. However, it did have its chips and razor tail. So really, there's pros and cons to both of them. But for the price point, the flight deck, I'm going to have to say, is the better bang for your buck. But if you're not jumping down stuff a lot, you know what I mean? Like if you're not actually, I mean, they're called impact, but if you're not skating impact, I think one of these could last somebody. Like if you're like a new skater or something like that, dude, this, even though you're spending almost $200 for it, you probably wouldn't have to buy another board for who knows how long. So in that aspect, it's kind of worth it. But for me, I'm always jumping down shit and doing all that kind of stuff. So really, I think the flights are the way to go. But like I said, I'm currently skating the flight deck. I'm gonna skate the absolute hell out of this one. I'm not gonna retire it early, so we'll see if it does end up breaking or just how bad the razor tail gets and the D-land and that kind of stuff. But then I'm going back to this one, and we're gonna test that one out too. But real quick, to wrap up the video, I'll show you guys like where it broke and kind of like what it looks like in there with the weird fibers and stuff, because it is kind of interesting. I don't really want to dig in there though, because I don't know if it's like fiberglass, and I don't really know what's in there. But let's take a look real quick. Yeah, see, dude, I don't know what this is. There's this layer, and then it's like the wood, but there's the stuff in between that, and then over here it's all fibered right up. I don't know what that exactly is, but it snapped right there, right on the ground. It's not very flexible now though. It's like pretty sturdy, but not if you stand on it. But anyways, that's gonna wrap this one up.